Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Kador. Yeah, I haven't made a video in a while, just because I haven't really been into it. I've mostly been making electronic music recently, and I'll leave a link to my SoundCloud in the description of this video, and you can check that out if you want to. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing recently, and so I decided to do a little series on this channel just for fun, because I feel like it, that basically reviews albums. And I'm going to be starting with deadmau5's discography of studio albums. I got this idea from the YouTube channel The Wonky Angle. I've been watching some of his videos recently and they're pretty good. He's a very good music reviewer. He has a lot of similar interests that I do in music. So yeah, I'll leave a link to his channel also if you want to check that out. But I just thought it'd be something fun to do. Why not? So I'm going to be starting with deadmau5's first studio album, Get Scraped. This is a much more kind of experimental album than a lot of other ones he's done. It just featured a lot of different kinds of genres kind of mixed together. And it was just obviously him kind of having fun and experimenting, which is what I'm kind of doing right now with my music. So yeah, it's very different from a lot of his other albums, and let's just go through it track by track. It should be fun. So we start off with the Oshawa Connection, which starts off right away with this weird kind of like radio clip from this guy like interviewing this lady about how rejection has affected her life, whatever that means. It's just kind of a weird, random, funny sample. And then after that it cuts straight into the music, which is kind of like, I don't really know the specific genre, if there even is a genre for this, but basically it's kind of like breakbeat, maybe a little bit of industrial style kind of thing. And there's a lot of tracks on this album like this one. And yeah, it's a good song. There's nothing really to say about it. There's some cool sounds and stuff here and there. And there's a voice sample that comes in every now and then. It's sort of low pitched, saying like, I took a dive in Oshawa, wah, wah, wah. Something like that, I don't know. So yeah, it's cool. It's a nice little kind of breakbeat song. It's pretty fast paced. And pretty good overall. I'd give this song a 7 out of 10. Next up we have Intelstat, which is a really good song in my opinion. It has this sort of fast-paced melody. It kind of repeats that over and over, but it never gets like boring or anything. It's really cool, and just the synth that's used to make it sounds really good. And the beat is a little bit simple. It's sort of one of the more similar ones to his later stuff that got him popular, the sort of progressive house type thing. That's kind of the genre that it's in. But it's pretty interesting. The beat isn't just like, it has some other stuff in there too. And also, part of the way through this one, a sample from, I think it's the like theme song for this one movie called Ghost in the Shell, I believe. It's just kind of this like chorusy kind of thing in Japanese, I believe, that comes in part of the way through, and just sort of, it just really adds to the mood of the song, and it sounds really good with everything else that's going on. So this is a very good track. I really like it. I'd say a 9 out of 10 for this one. Next up we have a very interesting one, Careless. This song starts out with a very sort of IDM, down-tempo beat with a few little noises and whirs and whistles and stuff here and there. And then a little like piano section kind of comes in. And what makes this track super interesting and very different from really anything else deadmau5 has done is that Joel Zimmerman, deadmau5, is actually singing on this one. Now, albeit it has a lot of auto-tune, like a lot. I guess he's not very confident in his singing ability, but I think it sounds really good. Yeah, it's just sort of piano then for the most part, with this, you know, the whole down-tempo kind of beat and a few cool little noises here and there. For the rest of it, the vocals aren't super interesting. They're kind of weird. It's just saying he doesn't care about anything, basically. But you know, they're a bit repetitive, but like, it still works, I think. This track's pretty good. I give it a 7 out of 10. Next up we have Unspecial Effects, which is a sort of similar song to the Oshawa Connection. It has just sort of this breakbeat, fast-paced sort of thing with a bunch of cool noises and stuff. This is a bit more of like an epic sounding song in terms of the melody, in my opinion. It's really just kind of like a cool build up and very just intense melody. And it has this cool vocal sample that happens every once in a while, saying like your special effects are washing away or something like that. And it has really a lot of really cool like effects on that vocal sample. And towards the end, it starts getting super like bit crushed and just sort of fades away. It's very cool. So I'd give the song probably like an 8 out of 10. Next up, we have "Waking Up" from the American Dream. This is a really weird, interesting song. It starts off with a very minimal sort of IDM beat, just a little bit like Careless. And then that sort of builds up a little bit, and you get this cool like drum roll effects throughout it that I like. And then you hear this alarm. It's like an alarm clock, and then you hear someone like hit the snooze button or something. And I guess that's meant to symbolize, you know, waking up from the American dream. There's an alarm and you turn it off. So that's pretty clever. And then sort of right after that, a little bit abruptly, it goes into this sort of poppy kind of piano section, and then the beat kicks back in eventually, and there's a few other sounds you get throughout the rest of it, but that's pretty much it. You get the piano and you get the beat. This song is interesting. It changes a lot throughout it, but the melody isn't great. It's kind of just so-so in my opinion. There's nothing that's super like, wow, this is cool about this song, so I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10. Next up is, what is it? I forget. Oh yeah, it's I Forget. This song is pretty interesting for sure. It's about like 2-3 minutes, and it kind of just has this pretty simple melody that sounds a little bit like a piano, but very like reverby and sort of like in the distance. It almost sounds like it's like from a memory or something. And also in the background, it has this, it has just some vocal sample of a bunch of people talking. It sounds like a really crowded room, or like a bustling city or something, with a bunch of people just chattering away, sort of in the background incoherently. It's very cool. I think it paints a very interesting mental picture. Not too much goes on throughout it, and the melody isn't like super catchy or anything, but it's definitely an interesting song. I would say a 7 out of 10. Next up, we have "Try Again." This is another type of sort of breakbeat type song or whatever, in the vein of like the Ashwa Connection and Unspecial Effects, that kind of thing. So I think this one's a little bit maybe less interesting. It's sort of the same type of formula with, you know, a voice sample every now and then, and the melody is just sort of like, it's fine, but there's not too much going on there. I'd go with probably a 6 out of 10 for this one. Next up, we have 8-Bit, which seems to be sort of like a fan favorite out of this album. I guess for people who like his progressive house style, this along with Intel Stat are probably his most similar ones to the stuff he got recognized for. So 8-Bit is a lot like progressive house, but it's also, as you can probably tell by the title, 8-bitified, and it's kind of chiptune type song as well. I don't love it, just because there's not too much that goes on during it. It's not like super interesting. The melody's pretty good, but it gets a little repetitive, and then, I don't know, there's just like nothing I feel like too gripping about it, and there's only a few different sounds that play throughout it, so it's not like super unique, except for the fact that it is chiptune and he hasn't really done that before. So I'd go with a 7 out of 10 probably for this one. Then we have Overdraft, which is, it starts out with just kind of a cool beat, another kind of breakbeat type thing, and has some sort of industrial type sounds that happen throughout. But where the song I think really shines is sort of later on, like towards the middle, where you get this really nice melody that's sort of, it feels like these little like chimes or bells or something that sort of go on in the background, and it's really kind of like nice and peaceful with all the drums going on. It's kind of weird. It's like, I don't know, I really like that part. And then it gets a little bit more dark and has these sort of arpeggiated notes happening, and then the melody comes back in again, and yeah, it's a nice song. I go with 8 out of 10. Next we have Board of Canada, which is a not so subtle nod to the musical duo Boards of Canada. which deadmau5 has said that he's very inspired by. Although it doesn't really sound like their tracks too much in my opinion, but it's really cool. I like this track a lot. The melody's just so good. Like, it has this really like warm kind of synth chords and melody that comes in that just sounds really good, and it keeps like layering on additional synths and stuff. All the while in the background you hear a sort of just samples of people sort of chattering, kind of like I Forget. Yeah, it's really cool. It's just a really good melody. But the only weird thing about this song is that the last like minute of it, and it only goes on for like a minute and a half in terms of like the sound, and then there's another minute that's just complete silence. I don't really know why. I mean, it's kind of just a thing. I don't know if that was intentional or what, but yeah, it's a little bit annoying. Nevertheless, I'd go with a 9 out of 10 for this one, just for the fantastic, beautiful melody. And next up we have Support, which is another type breakbeat, industrial style, whatever. I don't know if that's even the genre. I'm probably not getting that right. But it's a similar type of song from like Special Effects, Oshawa Connection, that kind of thing. It's a little more of like an angry sounding song than the other ones. The voice sample is equally angry if you hear it. Yeah, I don't know. The melody is sort of subpar in my opinion, but it's not bad. But I still have to go with a 6 out of 10. Next we have Edit Your Friends, which is yet another one of those kinds of breakbeat type things. But it has a very interesting sort of almost like acid sounding synth lead that just goes all over the place throughout it. It's pretty cool. And then it has this sort of spoken vocal track. It's not really a rap, but it's just kind of like this guy saying stuff. But I think it sounds pretty cool, and it just sort of adds a nice atmosphere to the song that I think you wouldn't get if you didn't have it. And then he starts kind of singing the same thing a little bit, and it works pretty well. So yeah, it's a nice song. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Next we have Satisfaction. This song probably reminds me most of the stuff he did on his next album, Vexillology, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I'll get to that on the next review. So it's kind of just like a beat that's sort of simple, just kind of like a house beat for the most part, with some sort of sound samples and stuff that happen throughout. And yeah, it doesn't have too much of a melody. It has a few sort of melodic segments here and there, but otherwise it's not super interesting. I'm gonna go with a 6 out of 10 for this one. And then we have Sometimes I Fail, which is very similar to the Oshawa Connection in that it has a weird kind of humorous radio sample at the beginning of some guys talking about the definition of cool and uncool. Yeah, it's very strange. And then it sort of gets into this kind of piano type thing with the sort of breakbeat style thing going on. The melody and the chords used in this song aren't fantastic. They aren't the worst, but the last like maybe 30 seconds of it actually has sort of a little synth lead type thing that comes in. But there's not really much that happens in the song that hasn't happened already before. So I'd go with a 6 out of 10. And finally, we have Careless Again, but an alternate mix version of it. This version is basically just a piano version. I mean, the original had piano too, but this is like an all-piano version. So it's just the Careless vocals with a full piano track, and no beat or anything, and really no other sounds. I think the other one's better just because it's a lot more interesting, and there's a lot more going on. There's a lot more different kinds of sounds, but if you prefer just piano music with vocals, then this is fine too. But I think it's a step down from the original, so I'd go with a 6 out of 10. Now, technically, that wasn't actually the last one, because there are two sort of like exclusive, limited edition, I guess, tracks that you get, I think, by buying like the physical copy. I'm not entirely sure about that, but there's some way to get them. They're on his website. But yeah, so the first one is Flash TV. This is just kind of, it has this like computer voice saying random weird stuff at the beginning about Flash TV and how you should destroy your television. And something about overzealous politicians trying to take over the internet. Anyway, Yeah, so it's sort of just a fast-paced kind of melody with a fast-paced beat. Not super different from any other songs, but it is a bit more melodic and a bit more interesting, I think. So I'd go with 8 out of 10 for that. And then the second limited edition exclusive track is Messages from Nowhere, which starts out really kind of like creepy almost, which is a good thing, I think. But it has these sort of like weird, glitchy, chopped up vocal samples that, I mean, I have no idea what they're saying. It sounds like some sort of like incantation the way he arranged all of them, which I guess is the message from nowhere kind of thing that he's trying to display there. And then it just sort of goes into this, generic kind of breakbeat type thing with a few other sounds and stuff here and there. It doesn't ever get like too much of a melody, a little bit. The melody's okay, but it's nothing like super fantastic. But I think the song is pretty interesting, so I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Alright, and finally, just as far as the album as a whole, I like to grade sort of the composition of the album and how well the tracks work together. And I'd say an 8 out of 10 for that one. They're all, I mean, there's a lot of variety on this album, which is good. And there's also a lot of similarity with, a lot of the sort of breakbeat industrial style songs that all seem to fit together pretty well. But then again, there is the occasional song that seems a little out of place, and it doesn't necessarily all fit together, but it fits together pretty well. So yeah, 8 out of 10. Alright, so basically I averaged all of those scores together from the songs and the album composition, and averaged all of them together, and it comes out to be a 7.1 out of 10 for this Get Scraped album. Not his best album for sure, but it was very interesting. There's a lot of experimental stuff going on, and it was pretty cool, I think. Definitely worth listening to, but not all the songs are perfect, obviously. He changes styles dramatically in his next few albums, and I'll be sure to cover those in the future. Alright, so yeah, that's it. It's the deadmau5 Get Scraped review. I'll be doing a review on Vexillology pretty soon, probably. And if you have another opinion on this album, you can comment below or whatever. See you next time.